Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Bible in 1 Year, the Preacher's Husband. Today we're going through Isaiah chapter 28 through 30. Tomorrow we're going to go through Isaiah chapter 31 to 34. So, there was a pretty big theme that was going on in today's reading, and it will continue on into tomorrow's, and that theme is woe, 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 woe. But not a good woe. This is a bad woe. These are negative woes. Right, woe, basically, when the Bible says woe, this is basically marks the beginning of a pronouncement that's connected to a funeral processional or something. So it's going to be something super negative. And right off the bat in chapter 28 is woe to the majestic crown of Ephraim's drunkards. This is referring to Samaria. And throughout 28, you see that woe. So this is the first woe in chapter 28 through 33. This is the number one woe right here. Woe to, I've just found it fascinating that they focus so much on drink. Verse 1, woe to those overcome with wine. Verse 3, Ephraim's drunkards. Verse 7, even these stagger because of wine and stumble under the influence of beer. Priest and prophet stagger because of beer. They are confused by wine. They stumble because of beer. They are muddled in their visions. They stumble in their judgments. Now, the priests and the prophets, they were crucial to the spiritual leadership of the nation. But here, they had clouded their thought with drink. They had drunk so much alcohol that they were even covered with vomit. It even says here in verse 8, indeed, all their tables are covered in vomit. That's just gross. The next section here in chapter 28 where it talks about making a deal with death. And then, of course, from verses 23 through 29, this is God's wonderful advice. Now, in this section, Isaiah drew an analogy between a farmer's task and God's treatment of Judah. Good results come from different actions and different methods applied at different times in this, as they went through here. Talking about sowing and the black cumin and the regular cumin that they're sowing. And he asked a series of questions here, and I found that to be very interesting. That leads us into our second woe. Woe number 2 is the beginning of chapter 29. It says, woe to Ariel. Ariel, the city where David camped. Now, this is the second woe. Now, Ariel itself actually translated, it means lion of God, or it means altar hearth. So it's kind of a confusing translation, but ultimately it's referring to Jerusalem here. And that's the second woe that we get. Woe to Jerusalem. And he goes to why they get woed. We get to verse 15 in chapter 29. We get our third woe. It's a new woe oracle here. It begins with this verse and extends to the end of this chapter. This is the third woe. It says, woe to those who go to great lengths to hide their plans from the Lord. You know God can see everything you're doing. Why you want to try to hide it from him? Can't do it. You can't hide what you're going to do that's bad from God. He sees everything. Verse 18, on the day the deaf will hear the words of a document, and out of a deep darkness the eyes of the blind will see. Now, you know, I got to look back on this. When I read that, 29:18, I look back at chapter 28, verse 11. 29, verse 11 and 12. It says here, for you the entire vision will be like the words of a sealed document. If it is given to one who can read, and he is asked to read it, he will say, I can't read it, but it is sealed. And if the document is given to one who cannot read, and he is asked to read it, he will say, I can't read. So, God basically has laid it all out for the people with this entire vision, but they were spiritually dull. They were spiritually not able to see it, so to speak. So they could not make sense of what this meant. And I believe that verse 18 here is talking about this coming transformation. It's also pictured as deaf hearing and the blind seeing. And the document that is listed here, I think this is probably an allusion to verse 11 and 12 as well. because in those verses the document could not be understood, but here it can be understood. So I'm thinking they're referring to the same thing. Then we get to chapter 30, and we get, woe to the rebellious children. Whoa, rebellious children, don't be a woe. That was our fourth woe in chapter 28 through 33, rebellious children. These were God's people who actually sought help from foreign nations rather than from God himself. They were looking to Egypt and other places for alliances at this point, and this is not where they should have been looking. You should always look to God, not to other people, for your support. And then, of course, verse 18 really stood out to me in chapter 30. This is just pulls it all together. Verse 18, if you're looking for some hope, here's a hope for you today. Therefore, the Lord is waiting to show you mercy and is rising up to show you compassion. For the Lord is a just God, and all who wait patiently for him are happy. I hope you're happy. I hope you're patient when you're waiting on God to do the things in your life that you need him to do. And in return, you know, God's waiting on you as well. He's being super patient. He wants to show you mercy. He wants to rise up and show you compassion because he is a just God. It's up to you to ask. He's waiting on you. And he's probably just as patient as we have to be waiting on him. God bless you. I hope this has touched you. If it has, click the like button and the subscribe button. Hit the little follow. Follow me on Rumble. If you're rumbling with me, give me a rumble on there. And I hope to see you next time for another episode of the Bible in 1 year with the Preacher's Husband. We'll see you then.